Hello everyone, it's not time to get started yet. We have a couple of minutes to go, so there's still time to grab a cup of coffee before we go live at 10 o'clock Central European Time. Very good. So for those of you who just joined, we have about a minute to go before we get started. So hold tight, grab a cup of coffee, and we are soon to go. Okay, it looks like the clock just got to 10 o'clock Central European Time, which means that it's finally time to get started on today's webinar. The topic for today will be sales enablement, or as you can see on the screen, hopefully you can see my screen. As you can see, it's about 3 real examples of why you need sales enablement to build a successful sales organization. We're going to try and be quick and efficient here today. I know it's middle of the week. It's not early morning anymore, at least not in Sweden, but I'm sure there's many things to accomplish before lunch for everyone listening. So we're gonna keep it short, efficient, and to the basics. At least not now in the start, however, because I know that people are coming in from having a meeting, going directly to this webinar, and they're gonna need 1 or 2 minutes to log on. And while we're waiting for those last people to arrive, I figured I could bring up a couple of things. One, you can ask questions in this webinar software if you want to. There should be a box somewhere where you can type in your question. And we will see if it fits to answer it at the end of the session, or alternatively that I will just email you back a reply afterwards sometime later today, because I'm going to get a log of all the questions that's been asked. We're also going to record the webinar so you can receive a copy afterwards, but more about that later. Also, I figured it would be a good time now to just tell you a bit about us at Bright Vision, if you don't know us since before. And as you can see here, Bright Vision generates leads for IT and technology companies in the Nordics, in Benelux, Spain, and Germany. And we do this through outbound teleprospecting, outbound sales, and we do it through inbound and digital marketing and social marketing. So we use a variety of different channels, and what we often do is that we do the work for our clients. We act as consultants who go into the roles of being sales developers or being digital marketeers for our clients and help them find and move business leads through the sales funnel. Sometimes when we have clients who need help to improve their own way of doing business, we also conduct educations, we do workshops, and we help out in change management, often related to questions like what we're going to bring up today, sales enablement, and how to improve your sales business. Great, so it's 2 minutes past and I figure we could move on to the subject matter for today. And here's an overall agenda of what we're going to look at. We're going to look at the basics of sales enablement. And as you will see, it's a very broad term. So we're also going to break it down into 4 categories, or as I say here, 4 pillars of sales enablement. And from that, we're also going to bring up 3 real client stories of clients that we have or have had in the past, where you can learn some lessons from their way of acting and what they could have done differently if they had sales enablement in mind when they did their campaigns. After the webinar, sometime tomorrow, we will also email out a, well, for one, you will get a recording of today's webinar, and you're also going to get a self-assessment form that you can use to evaluate your own business through the framework of sales enablement. Because again, since it's such a broad term, it can be quite hard to see where you should get started. And the self-assessment form is a good way of kind of determining where you should put your efforts for the moment. So what is sales enablement then? Well, if you look around on Google, which I've done extensively, you can see the term being called just about anything from being a philosophy to a strategy, a methodology, a framework, a process, a concept, just about anything. And I think that's because it's such a broad term. There's so much that goes into it. But I found 3 good definitions of the term that I thought we'd go through and kind of break down to see what we can learn from it. So first, from Brainshark, we have sales enablement is a strategic discipline designed to increase sales results by providing integrated content, training, and coaching services for salespeople along the entire customer's buyer's journey, powered by technology. Right? Then we have Top HQ saying that sales enablement is the process of providing the sales organization with the information, content, and tools that help salespeople sell more effectively. And finally, from our dear partner HubSpot, a sales enablement strategy is the approach your business takes to provide sales with the resources they need to effectively sell. This strategy is tailored to your specific sales team's needs so they can target your audience and close more deals. And if we highlight a few things here, and we look through them again, starting from Brainshark, it's about providing content, training, and coaching services to salespeople. From Top HQ, information, content, and tools to help salespeople. And from HubSpot, to provide sales with the resources they need to effectively sell. So it's, the key is in the term sales enablement. It's about enabling sales or specific salespeople so they can do their job of closing deals as efficiently and as with a high conversion rate as possible. And also by salespeople, I mean anyone in a role where they have a quota, something to achieve in terms of generating pipeline value, booking appointments, closing deals. So it could be anyone from your inside sales team, your appointment setters, booking meetings. It could be your account managers, it could be your key account managers, anyone in a senior sales role, anyone who just started at your company going through the onboarding process. So this involves anyone working with sales and by supplying them with what they need to do their job as good as possible. And from this, you can see that this is a very broad term. Anything you could do in a sales organization more or less goes into this. So if you're working as a manager in a sales department, or if you're responsible for an inside sales team or anything like that, you're already working with various parts of sales enablement. While the term can be quite new or a few years old by now, what you do in it is things that you've done for many years in the past in a sales organization. It's nothing new in that way. So why is it then relevant? Why should you look at this? What should you learn from it? And what's good about it is that it provides a framework which is needed to make sense of your sales organization and to better know where to start improving things. I worked as a sales manager myself for a long time now, and I know how hard it can be to actually determine where you should put your efforts in to improve things. And a framework like Sales Enablement means that you can break it down, you can decide what you should focus on for this specific month or this specific quarter, what you should leave for next period and the period after that. It gives you something to follow along with, something to hold your hand, and that's why it's so good to use. So if we start to break down the concept of sales enablement, we have 4 categories: organize, align, optimize, and transform. There are a few different ways of doing this. Not all of them include these 4 pillars, but it's what's used by HubSpot, who we partner with, so I like to use that. And if we go through them one by one, and if we start with organize. Organize as a pillar, one of these 4 pillars, it looks at how you make sense of all contact and prospect data that your sales reps have at their disposal. And the data they have to utilize, to make use of in their sales process, it's just as with any data, it's exploded enormously over the last few years. And that might be one of the reasons why people are looking more and more at sales enablement, because you really need to find a way to make use of all that data, because it can provide you with a competitive edge if you use it properly and if you find the right way of doing things. So in Organize, we're looking at things like, is there a CRM system in place? And is it a good fit for your organization? Is it something that's easy to use? Is it cloud-based, modern, or is it some old legacy system that came with your ERP system 10 years ago? Right? Is it easy to work in? Is it easy to overview results and follow up on things? And most of all, perhaps the $1 million question, is it actually used by everyone in sales as intended? That's the hard part for most companies. And in Organize, we also have our first example of a real life client that could do this in a better way than what they've done in the past. This company is one of the largest IT companies in the world, one of the most recognized brands in the world. I will not name them, however, for obvious reasons. But it's a very well-known, very large company within the IT industry. And what's surprising about them is that they actually don't have a CRM at all, which is an eye-opener for many who think that it's only very small companies who don't have a CRM system in place. But here we have one of the behemoths of the industry without one. And I've spoken with many people in their sales organization over the years, and they all use different things to still manage to sell efficiently. Some people use Outlook's contact function. Some people use their phone contact list. I know one person who adopted their own HubSpot license just because it was a better way for them to sell. But many still use, as you can see here, an Excel sheet where they put in information, try and make some structure, try to make some sense of all the customer and prospect data they have at their disposal. And even though it's heavily censored, you can see that things get messy very quickly, and it's not a good way of doing things. And I'm clueless to why the company doesn't have a CRM, but what I do know is that it hurts them. And I can tell you that because at Brightvision, we carry out hundreds of interviews every day for our clients in outbound prospecting. We call up decision makers, potential clients. We try to create an interest for them to have a meeting and meet our client and so on. And it's exceedingly rare, it's surprisingly rare that anyone has a bad opinion of the company that we represent in those calls, except in the case of this client, where it's actually quite common in their campaigns that the prospects we call have a negative opinion of them. Often they will tell us that they are already a client in this area that we call them about and ask us if we shouldn't know that already. Or they tell us that they had a sales rep from our company meeting with them a couple of weeks ago on this very subject and ask us if we shouldn't know that. Or they tell us that someone called them 2 days ago on this very topic and asks us if we shouldn't know that. So we have this company with so many clients and with so aggressive sales and marketing tactics who has no clue who they've spoken to and who they are working with. And it really creates a bad will situation for them. And my recommendation to them would be to adopt a CRM system and start using it. And it's my recommendation to anyone listening here today as well. So lesson learned from that, lesson learned number one. If we move on, we have the pillar of optimize. And I don't have an example. I don't have a client example on this one, so we'll go through it a bit quicker than the others. But optimize is looking at not the skills, but the efficiency of your sales agents. And it looks at how customer-centric they are, because you want your client, you want your sales reps to be as focused as possible on actually speaking with prospects and clients. That's their job, right? So everything else they do needs to be as quick and easy as possible. So if you look at the bullet points here, it's about making sure that there is sales content available for each step of the buyer's journey, right? So for any prospect you have in different parts of the buyer's journey, you should be able to quickly provide them with interesting material that shows that you're a thought leader in your business, or customer cases from that prospect's industry vertical, or demonstration videos for those that want to see how the system you have is actually used or how it looks and so on. So here it's of course important to make sure that when marketing, who makes most of the material, actually have someone from sales represented when deciding on what to create. And not only do you need to have the material done, it should be easily accessible for the sales reps, and it should be easy for them to share it with their prospects. And from the same line of thinking, you need to have email templates and email sequences in place, so you don't have sales reps writing answers to the same questions each and every time someone asks them a question. They shouldn't find their elevator pitch each and every single time they want to do a cold email to someone. There's functions for having email templates and email sequences in just about any modern CRM system, so there's no excuse not to have it. And also, finally, you need to make sure that the reports and the administrative tasks that are on the sales reps to carry out are automated or set to a minimum. Again, in most CRM systems and most sales software tools and BI tools, it's easy to bring out automated reports from the data that you already have in your system. If you don't have that, or if you don't have the technical skills to set that up, you can at least make sure to keep the reporting to a minimum, because it's easy to have reporting creep happen where it's more and more data that you want readily available each week, but you don't have to. So keep it to the essentials. Next pillar then of sales enablement is called align, and it's about how your sales department cooperates with all other departments in the company, most of all with the marketing department, as they are part of the same process of bringing strangers into prospects into paying clients. And again, this is a topic that if you look at my LinkedIn feed, news feed, you see everyone talking about this and how important it is, to the point where I'm getting tired of hearing about it. But it's so popular to bring up because there are still so many companies that need to learn from this. You need to make sure that sales and marketing are aligned in what their joint responsibilities are, in what pipeline value that marketing should bring to sales, how many number of sales accepted leads that should come in from marketing and so on. And there needs to be set definitions in place, not only between sales and marketing, but in the whole organization, on different lead statuses that you use and how you route leads, at which point in time and how and from whom and to whom should leads go in the organization. And also not only from marketing to sales, but also back from sales to marketing if a lead doesn't turn into a selling new client within 6 months or 12 months. There needs to be a process in place for this. Brings us to our second client example for this webinar. And you can see in this email, it's again heavily censored and it's in Swedish. So if I translate, this is from a salesperson, a sales manager, or as it says here, sales specialist at our client company, also one of the largest in the world. And he asks me about information on a number of opportunities that we have generated in the system. He's asking me if they have been handled in any way, and if so, by whom. So we looked at this, we looked at the campaign, and it turned out to have been a about 6-month-old campaign we did for this company. And we did it with their marketing department because marketing owns the outbound prospecting for this company. So we did appointment setting for them, calling new potential clients, identifying and contacting decision makers, and booking meetings with them where we decided on a day and time where a sales rep would come out and meet them and discuss this topic, this solution. And then we documented this and sent it back to the marketing department and also tagged it in their, not their CRM system, but in their marketing automation system. And it turns out when we looked at this and when we follow up on this with the marketing contact, it turns out that most of the meetings we booked, so about 12 or so of the 25 meetings that we booked, actually didn't get handled by anyone in sales. So no one came out and visited these companies that we had promised someone would meet up with. So not only were they wasting money on having us do all these calls, booking meetings, they also create badwill at these companies who took time off their busy calendars to meet with someone and then no one shows up. So it's going to be a real uphill battle for them anytime they want to make sales with these companies again. I can promise that much. So lesson learned here, you don't have to start with all the advanced parts of the alignment process. You don't need automated workflows and sequences and lead scoring systems and so on. You, at least at an initial step, make sure that you have someone from sales and someone from marketing sitting in on the same meetings every week or every month or so, whatever works for you, just to go over what's happening, what marketing activities are we doing that you should be aware of, where you might need to follow up with a prospect. That's still needed to be said now in 2019. But for next year, perhaps everyone is doing this in a good way. We'll see. The fourth and last pillar of sales enablement is called transform. And transform as a term, it's talking about the transformation of the skills of the sales rep into becoming better salespeople. That's what it means if it's vague for someone. So how can our sales reps convert as many prospects as possible? And again, this shows how broad of a term sales enablement is, because within this one pillar, we can look at the skills of a sales rep and how to improve those. And there's books, there's entire libraries filled with information on how to do that. So it's a vast area on its own to look at. There's many things. I put down a few bullet points. One thing to look at is to consider if there's good, frequent coaching and feedback taking place. So not only doing one and done coaching, a quick sit down with the lowest performing sales rep of the month, but actually having a process in place where everyone in your sales organization is receiving relevant coaching, relevant feedback on a long-term basis, month in, month out, fit for them and what they focus on in their work. And you need a sales playbook in place, something documented that boils down what your sales culture is, how you do sales, what your relation is with the marketing department, with the production or service office. You need to boil down what your most efficient and highest performing sales reps are doing. You need to boil down those skills into something that anyone can learn from. So you need a sales playbook. I know many people, many companies that don't have one yet. They're talking about it, but they never get started because they see it as such a vast task to begin with. But you don't need to do everything at once. You can try and find one bullet point, something to write about once every month, something that you really feel is essential to your sales department and your success. And in line with that, you need a good onboarding in place so that you can bring in salespeople, new salespeople who are up and running within a couple of months rather than in a year's time. There's many e-learning systems now you can utilize. You need a mixture of videos, text, quizzes, tests, and of course also real life educations and sit downs together with other sales reps and so on. But you need something in place for this. And in Transform, we have our third client example for this webinar, our final client example. And this is a much smaller company than the both earlier examples. It's a small Swedish company that we worked extensively with in around 2013, 2014. And they had a unique position in their market. They had patents that meant that they were the only ones who could create a specific combination of software and hardware, which was very interesting to a very broad market of companies. So again, we did aggressive marketing for them. We booked over 400 meetings over a 2-year period. And it turns out that they managed to close deals on, I believe, 3 or 4 of those. So a 1% conversion from a sales qualified lead into a paying client, which is vastly below any industry standard, vastly below anything we see from our clients in other areas. So they failed in accomplishing this, and ultimately they fired their whole sales department, 5 or 6 salespeople, and recruited completely new ones, which is a very drastic thing to do, but I think it was the right thing for them to do. And it's just now in 2019 that we can see that their market valuation is around the same level as it was back when we worked with them. It's taken them a lot of time, and they are still looking to make any additional growth. What we also can see now in 2019 is that there are many clients, many competitors of theirs that have caught up, that now have systems that are doing kind of the same thing as they are doing. So the opportunity they had to really grow, really scale from this unique concept they have failed. And of course, we can only speculate in what was it that meant that their sales reps couldn't close the deals. Could be the coaching, could be education, could be the lack of a sales playbook, could be many things. We don't have that insight, but you really need to work on this. You really need to work on the skills of your sales rep and support them to make sure that you get the results you need. And this can connect into the other pillars of sales enablement. It could be connected to organize, that you need a good CRM system in place so that you can easily drill down and see the performance of your different sales reps, your different sales departments within your sales organization, to make sure that you can identify where you need to make changes in order to get the results that you expect and the results that you need. Lesson learned. So to summarize, we've been speaking for 25 minutes. It's time to summarize where we are. Just a few bullet points. Sales enablement is about providing sales reps with the software, content, support, and coaching they need so they can do their job. And it's divided into 4 categories: organize, optimize, align, and transform. And what it gives you is a framework that you can use when deciding what to focus on in your initiatives to improve the way your sales department operates. That's what's good about it. And last of all, if you need any help with this, Bright Vision can help you identify your potential for improvement. We can give you advice on how to proceed, and we can be part of that change management process that might be the hardest part of all in accomplishing change related to your sales department and the topic of sales enablement. So if you're interested in discussing this any more in detail, feel free to reach out to me. You have my contact details here, and you will also receive an email from me sometime tomorrow with a recording, some more information on the subject, as well as a self-assessment form with some questions that you can ask yourselves and your colleagues in your sales department to try and determine where you are right now and what you could do to get the most results going forward. So thank you for listening. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the day and be in touch. Bye-bye.